At the height of his career in 2006, Chris O'Brien received a big shock when he was diagnosed with brain cancer. But he now says he has to embrace the illness. I began the second part of our interview by asking him how he could embrace it when most of us think of cancer as a life-threatening situation.
I mean, I think that's an interesting question. And you said that I was shocked. I guess it depends on how you interpret the word shocked. I was surprised by the diagnosis, and I never would have foreseen that I would develop a brain tumour. And even when I was symptomatic and coming up to the time of diagnosis, I had really serious symptoms that I failed to interpret correctly. That might just reflect the fact that I wasn't a very good doctor, but I
don't think so.
I didn't really interpret my symptoms correctly. I was waking up with headache. And if as a young doctor I had a patient come to me and say, "Look, I'm waking up in the morning with headache, doc, what do you think it can be?" My teaching was I should have said to the patient, "You need a brain scan, you might have a tumour." But I couldn't interpret that in my own self. I was surprised to have had that diagnosis, but by the time the diagnosis was made, I was so sick and so debilitated that I wasn't really shocked. If anything, I was relieved to find out what it was causing my terrible debilitation. But again, in retrospect, and this is looking at the whole scenario, why did I develop a brain tumour? Was it mobile phone use? And was I laid open to this thing because my immune system, my immune surveillance let its guard down? Was that because of stress or overwork, or what was it? I don't really know. But I think a reasonable sort of interpretation of the scenario is to say, well, for some reason, my body had reached a point of disharmony. Now, was it because I had a physiological or physical disharmony and my own immune system wasn't really performing as well as it should? I don't know. But I am a believer in the concept that if I'm going to return to good health, and if I'm going to defeat this tumour, and the odds are very strongly against the fact that I'll do that, and the odds are very strongly weighted towards my dying of this, which does not cause me fear. And I look at that likely outcome with a fair degree of equanimity. It doesn't mean I will it or I want it, but I'm not fearful of it. So if that's what happens, when the time comes, I can accept that that's what the outcome is. And in the meantime, I regard myself as having been incredibly fortunate, firstly, to have had the time with Gail and my 3 children to go through this process of preparation and having the opportunity to say all the many things that one needs to say, and for them to be able to prepare themselves and so on.
It's difficult days.
I know when I wake up in the morning if it's going to be a difficult day. It's a good idea not to go to church sometimes. I get a bit melancholy. Can't imagine life without him.
But you won't have life without me. I mean,
You talk about the power, obviously, of positiveness and hope that one can beat this.
Well, I think there's actually evidence for that. Not in me. I think the greatest benefit of a positive attitude and hope is not so much that it will necessarily give the immune system a kickstart and increase the likelihood of cure in that particular person. I think the great benefit is that as something that augments the quality of life of the patient and augments the quality of life of those around the patient, then a positive attitude is really so important. And it's my own positive attitude has really given me the drive to want to pursue everything I can to become well and remain well and look well and to be well and to continue to be productive. And this is one of the things I started to say, is that in this last 2 years I've had this extraordinary honour of being invited to write my life story. I mean, it's really such an inconsequential life, and yet I've had the opportunity to write an autobiography and have had people who are interested enough to want to buy my book and want to read it, and to have given me feedback that they've found it interesting and found it well written, and some people have even found it inspiring, which I find extraordinary. And then on top of that, to be able to continue to advocate for the development of this cancer centre, and to be able to have the ear of the Prime Minister and Nicola Roxon, the Federal Health Minister, and state politicians and bureaucrats, and that I've been able to hand over the moving forward of this to wonderful people. Michael Boyer, who's the new director of the Sydney Cancer Centre, and Robin Crawford, who was a founding director of Macquarie Bank, who's the chairman of our Sydney Cancer Centre Foundation, and the new CEO, Tim Dugan, who's the CEO of the Lifehouse Project, have really formed an incredibly effective and productive and energetic triumvirate.
But started by you and your passion.
Well, yeah, but I'm not physically strong now, and people who watch this can draw their own conclusions, and some people would think that I'm intellectually knocked off.
Not at all.
But in fact, I don't think I'm more knocked off than I was before I started.
Not at all. Talking about those people who seek you out, as I understand it, the Prime Minister Kevin Rudd seeks you out on a relatively regular basis, and that you receive text messages from him. Can you tell us a little bit about that relationship?
No, I'm very hesitant to overstate any of these things, because I think what's been marvellous is that so many people have recognised the idea of having a comprehensive cancer centre at PA. So many people have recognised as being such a good idea and so timely, and I'm incredibly gratified by the fact that among those people is the Prime Minister.
His journey from surgeon to patient has touched many, including the Prime Minister.
He's an inspiration to us all. I've met him many times now.
On top of that, I've been the recipient of extraordinary generosity from a big range of people, and that really goes to just support and concern and outright love from so many people, including my wife and children, so many friends and colleagues and so on. And I'm very, very grateful that the Prime Minister keeps in touch and continues to be both personally supportive of my situation and also supportive of the plan to develop this comprehensive cancer centre.
Chris, you've had 5 operations now. What treatment are you currently pursuing? Are you doing radiotherapy or chemo? Because you say you're not fearful about what might lie ahead and what the outcome of this might be.
Yeah, I've had 5 operations now, the last of which was on the 9th of January. And that was a pretty significant operation. It was 5 hours long. And again, Charlie Teo, who's now done, he's done 4 of the 5 operations. And Charlie's been wonderful to me. And Helen Wheeler, who's my oncologist, has been wonderful as well, along with the oncologist of Prince Alfred. So yes, I've had all that treatment. I'm not cancer-free, although recent scans demonstrate that the tumour, the cancer control in my brain, is at a pretty good state. The future is still clouded in terms of how this will play itself out. I've long passed, thinking that I'll be cured, and I think the chance of that's, very close to 0. But having said that, and I always said this to my own patients, you never know what's around the corner. And there's an enormous amount of research, not much of it going on in Australia, but particularly in the United States. But having had 5 operations, I've got a healing problem with this wound, because I have had radiotherapy to this side of my head, and radiotherapy does diminish the vitality of tissue and limit subsequent wound healing.